How's it going, everyone? Badger here, and I wanted to go over this video because it's Rip and the Silverback, Young Rippa and Az from their podcast. They're, for all intents and purposes, talking about gay is not a personality, and they're talking about it from the comic book perspective. The reason I want to talk about this is not only that, but this applies to every single movie, franchise, game. Every time they gender swap a character, sexuality swap a character, race swap a character, those aren't personalities in and of themselves. They're elements of a personality, and that's sort of what they're going over here. And just let's see.
True.
Regardless of which side of the coin you would politically flip on, regardless of what ideology you believe, because there used to be professionalism once upon a time.
I don't know if you've talked about it with them.
And the professionalism he's talking about is once upon a time, regardless of someone's political or social beliefs, when you were hired for a job, you did that job for what was best for that job. If you were hired to write a book or a comic or make a movie, it was what was best for that movie, not how much of my own personal beliefs can I shoehorn in here.
I know, I believe you have with Chuck. I know we talked about it, and how, the relationship with Danny O'Neill and how, yes, they were differing politically, right? But none of that shit mattered because it wasn't about them.
Yes. It was about the character.
Yes, it was specifically about the character. And like Chuck would say, like, when you're reading this stuff, I don't want you to even think about me, right? That's not the point. It's like,
that's not what any of the modern writers, who are most of them are very young or narcissistic or young and narcissistic, they want you thinking of them. And the only experience they have to write from is their own very limited ones. So that's why it's essentially them as the character instead of the character as the character, which is what Glenn Leary from Comic Book Palace was talking about when everyone attacked him.
He wants to understand the character. They have a voice, and he makes sure that he writes in that style, right? That's the point. I feel honestly, this whole that shit's lost, right? Because we see a lot of this in example with comics. The reason, and look, I don't say this shit. I know she tried that little bastard tried to get my channel taken down. What's her name? Fucking
Don't speak the name of evil. But yeah, that's what they do. That's what they do. They try to get your channel struck because they know that their bad ideas versus your good ideas, if people listen to both of them, they would hear your ideas and like them more. So they try to silence you. So all you hear is their shitty ideas.
T. Franklin, right?
But the
reason why I always refer to her, because she's a prime example of everything it is that we're talking about. Yeah. So it's not about these characters. It's about, okay, she's gay.
So, by the way, everything he's about to say right here applies to Leslie Headland, former Harvey Weinstein executive assistant, and her Acolyte series. Gone on record by, she said like 4 times in the interview, as a queer woman, as a woman who's queer, I see everything through a queer lens, and the entire series is going to be informed by my queer. Yeah, they can't help but put themselves in everything. This is also the Mags Visagios of the world.
Everything.
Trans comic book writer who likes to, shocker, trans comic books characters, established characters. She likes to make them trans.
She writes is gay.
Everything she writes is gay. Everything she writes is gay, and everything has to be about that. So even with the character like a vixen, right? Like an
original black female character, solid flirting with Jon Stewart Green Lantern in the animated series.
I don't know if you guys remember. I think it was in the Harley Quinn book that she was writing, and she had almost like predatory, where Vixen is hitting on some gay disabled chick in a limousine.
That's weird. Who just happens to be gay and disabled?
Yeah, who just happens to be gay?
It's almost like this is wish fulfillment.
Any ideas?
Any idea?
Any ideas?
You start to peel stuff back. Oh, it's the freaking writer, right? Like it's unbelievable, right? And she had, was that like some gay ass 3-way kiss that between like Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, I think was in it, and some other, I don't know who, I can't remember who the
now, the problem with that is I got no problem with that three-way lesbian kiss, but I'm a horny asshole, all right? And that's what Rule 34 websites. You want horny lesbian kisses with your villains and your heroes. That's what porn is for. It's not for actually doing it in the mainstream comic, especially when some of them aren't gay. That's what being professional is. Just because you want to see it doesn't mean it's best for the character or the story or the book or the movie or whatever the hell you're doing.
Third wheel was.
If you're gay and disabled and you like Spider-Man, it doesn't mean that we now need a gay disabled Spider-Man that flies around with their legs limp and their chair strapped to their back. And if you think that's insensitive of me to say, I should inform you that that's a real fucking character that they actually did. They've actually made a disabled Spider-Man whose limp legs flop around with their chair strapped to their back as they swing around through the city. Go Google that. I'm not going to do your work for you, but yes, it's real.
You know, she's tweeting like, hey, I got to be the first person to put a three-way lesbian. I'm like, what the fuck?
Who gives a fuck? You want
You're
a cookie?
writing comics, bro. Like, why? What the fuck does that have to do with anything? Like,
she's not writing a comic. She's writing a sexual fantasy.
Yeah, they are writing softcore porn for themselves.
Where she's part of the plan. She's part of it. If I say to Chuck, if I'm running DC, right, and I'm looking for a writer for Superman, and let's just say it can't get hold of Dan Jurgens, can't get hold of certain people, and I say, Chuck, call up Chuck Dixon. Chuck, I know you work for yourself. I know you don't want to come for a pay cut. I ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna pay.
Meanwhile, Eric pays more than the current comic industry. He pays more than DC and Marvel because he doesn't have a middleman he has to fuck with.
Pay you properly. Can you come over here and write Superman for me? And Chuck says, "Go on, I'll do a run for you." I know that Chuck's going to write Superman. I know that Chuck's going to be like, "How does Clark act? How does Superman act?"
And Chuck, when he was writing Alpha Core for Eric, pull him aside and like, who are these characters? Make me understand who all of these characters are. So when I write them, I'm not writing me, I'm writing the characters. Because that's what a professional does. That's what an actual writer does. Activists push their own. They write themselves. They don't need to know who the character is. They already know because the character is them.
What stories can I put them in? How can I make this interesting, fun, blah? I don't have to even have a concern about Chuck. I know that Chuck's going to write Superman. I call up Chuck. Chuck, can you do Superman? Chuck says, "Sorry, I can't do Superman." Oh, okay. I was all right. Cheers, buddy. I'll try and find someone else. Put the phone down. Mags, are you free to do Superman? Can you get on my desk a synopsis of where you want to go with the character?
And let's see if he's going to do it because famously Mags Visargio just announced that she was going to trans Connor Kent. She's going to make Connor Kent have a full trans story. There was concept art and everything.
Character. Okay, cheers. Thanks, Mags. No, I'm not going to give you money. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm going to fuck off. And then you get a piece of paper that comes on your desk and you go, okay, Clark's now trans and Lois is gay.
Yeah, except it is John Kent is now gay and Connor Kent was going to be trans.
And Jonathan Kent's now.
By the way, they say bisexual, but it means gay. You'll never see him with a woman again. You can't go back. That's
like you just describe what is again, I think it's the difference in the attitude from previous creatives versus what we have now. Well, we have a bunch of activists masquerading as creators.
Activists masquerading as creatives. That's what it is. That's what happened to The Witcher. It's what happened to all of it. It's what happened to varying degrees. It's what happened to all of it. A bunch of activists, for one cause or another, political, social, for one cause or another. They're activists. They care about that cause more than the story or the characters, right? That's the same problem, same group. You spread them out over to everything. And then in their own way, they destroy the product because they don't care about the product. They know you care about the product, which is the only reason they're there. So they can put as much of themselves before they hit critical mass. And you guys realize that we've all been fucked and everything's been subverted for their political messaging. instead of the actual creation that used to get done.
Like activism is what they lead with. That's first and foremost for them, and everything has to be about fucking them.
In fact, I'm completely fine with that being another definition of woke. What is woke? It's when it's activism over creation. It's agenda over story and characters. What's woke? It's agenda over story and characters.
Everything, and it has got to be fucking as on the nose as. It's not even like, again, they're not writing good characters. They're not writing interesting stories or and putting people in interesting universe.
And that's the other thing. If they were actually doing good shit, we wouldn't have a damn thing to say. But instead, they write horrible shit, say if you don't like it, don't buy it. Then no one buys it. And then they go, oh my God, we're in tatters. Why did you do this to us? And they blame us for it.
Versus to get lost in. It has nothing to do with what it is they're doing. Everything is, how can I get a pat on the back from my peer, be it social views, being what we lead with, or if it's something and maybe in the political realm. And that's the starting point. Like that.
And that's the thing that keeps being horrible, is it keeps fucking working. They keep failing upward. All these Marvel writers that lose them hundreds of $millions, they keep getting put on other projects. All these comic book writers that keep transing and gang and everything, they keep fucking getting hired.
That is what they're trying to accomplish. If there is to be a motivation, that's what it is that they have. Everything else that happens is secondary, because it all has to lead up with that or lead with that. That's what it has to do. So every decision that has to get made needs to be with that in mind. And that's what makes for these, I mean, just fucking terrible narratives. And
there needs to be a creative, I mean, we're sort of seeing it with people being fired, and you're hearing, that all those diversity hires are quietly being let go, but there needs to be a cleansing, not to trigger anyone, across the board of all of our properties, from comics to video games are next, by the way, if you haven't noticed. Video games are coming. They're coming for those next. But across the board, these people need to get out. Get out. Go back to being the fringe lunatics that we would ignore on social media. We gave them the keys to the car, and they've driven us right off a fucking cliff.
And it's so blatantly obvious to where it's like, you can read a story, and I know exactly who wrote it.
Alpha. You can tell who wrote it. You can tell what their political beliefs are just by what they will or won't do, what they're allowed or not allowed to do. By all means, by the way, if you aren't, on this iron age and supporting Eric and his ISOM Alpha Core and growing list of comic books, please check them out. They are good. Az is killing it over there. Big fan of their podcast, as Rip and the Silverback, and obviously Real BBC, all that stuff. Please give them a like, share, and subscribe. Give myself a like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget about this. Next time you see them, race, gender swapping, sexuality swapping, all the swapping, you know why they do it. Activision, agenda over story and character. Activists, not creatives. We will see you on the next one. Thank you all for watching.